Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen and I'm going to show you how to make this Rainbow Dash My Little Pony cake. And if you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing because it helps me out. And if you see any tools or supplies that you could use that I'm using, check the link in the description below. Alright, to begin, I just started with some 6-inch round cakes. I made chocolate cakes, I have them on my cake plate, and I iced them. I just made some chocolate icing. Layered up between the cakes, started stacking them, make sure they're nice and neat and even, and just keep on going till I had them 3 stacks deep. Once they were all covered, once the icing was smoothed out enough as best as I can, which I've mentioned before I'm not very good at, I tried to get it nice and even anyway. I stuck it in the fridge for a little while to let the cake set. Now, once my cake was nice and chilled, I took some nice sky blue. This is actually sky blue. It looks a little darker, but it's sky blue. And I rolled out my fondant, laid it over my cake just like so, as you see, and very carefully tweak it a little if you need to. Just lift it very carefully and then smooth it down. I just lift up the edges and press down on the sides of the cake with the side of my hand, just smoothing straight down toward the bottom. Using my little fondant paddle to smooth off the bottom as well, make a nice sharp edge. I'm using my pizza cutter there that I got out of my drawer to cut off the extra, and I kind of cut it a little bit even. I wasn't very careful. I needed to be more careful, so be careful when you do that. Watch your angle that you don't accidentally undercut in the fondant so then it shows at the bottom, which is what happened with me. Then back in the fridge. Now I'm making some eyes for Rainbow Dash here. I'm taking gum paste at this point. Not fondant. You could use fondant. I'm just using gum paste. I cut out a couple big circles as you see, and I'm just shaping them carefully using my hands and just pulling on them. I'm rolling them a little bit to make them into ovals. Make sure they're the same size oval, because that's always a good thing. And those are going to become the base for her eyes. Because this cake doesn't really have a lot of detail, it's a style that you've seen, I'm sure, a million times by now, different animals and things. You've got to pay attention to the few details you are going to add. Now, her eyes are kind of like this hot pink color, but they're a dark hot pink. So what I'm doing is I'm rolling out some ovals again. It was a couple of circles that I'd cut out. This is still gum paste. And I just pulled them and rolled them till I made them into ovals just like before. And now I'm laying them on the inside of the eyes. It almost kind of looks like eggs at this point, but those are going to be her eyes. Now I've got a couple balls of black just like before. Pull them, roll them, make them into ovals just like before. We're just doing the same thing because I don't have oval cutters. You'd think by now I would have bought them, but I kind of get lazy sometimes about spending money on things. Now to make the eyes a little bit more rainbow dashy, I am taking the same hot pink color. It's actually rose, if you're interested. And I added a touch of water to it to make it a little more paint-like. And I am painting the top and the bottom of the pink part of the eyes, of the iris of her eyes. You can see I'm leaving a gap in the center. If you look at pictures of her eyes, she has like the dark pink at the top and bottom, and then there's going to be a thin little line of a medium shade of pink and then the light pink. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I added a little more water to the color that I already mixed, and I'm putting just a thin band of the medium. It's hard to see, but you can kind of see where I'm painting it there. So now I have the 3 shades of it. I'm taking some black with a little bit of water, food coloring again, and just painting over the iris, the pupil, to make it just a little bit more shiny, because it kind of stood out as being matted once I had painted the iris around the pupil. So just trying to get that nice shiny look. These are going to be the highlights of her eyes. I'm just rolling out some beans again, some tic tac shapes. She's got a very big long one across the top of her eye, as you see, and it's angled too, so watch the angle of it. And then she also has a second small one right underneath of it in the pupil itself. So the one covers part of the iris and the pupil. The other one just goes in the pupil. Now I am sticking them on my cake. They are still soft and flexible, so even though they're gum paste, they're working with me. And I just put some water on the back of them and then stick them onto my cake. I keep them kind of close together and try to make them as much up and down as possible. It looks for some reason like they're angled, but they were up and down. Now I'm taking some black gum paste again, just because I happen to have the black mixed already. Rolling it out nice and long, so it's tapered at each end, and then I'm wrapping it around her eyes. I'm making it so the one side where the pupil is touches, and then it goes out and around about halfway down the other side. This blue is going to be her ears. I kind of made a big old teardrop shape, sort of, just very rounded, very rounded. Cut a wedge out of it with a circle, cut a straight cut down with my knife there. And this is going to be so it can go up against the side of the cake and then wrap around the top of the cake. I'm putting a little just indentation of a line because that's what the picture looked like to me. And stick it on with some water. I ended up having to use a piece of dried spaghetti to hold it in place as well. And it seemed to work. It seemed to stick in, you know. I kind of smooth it with my paddle there, you know, blend it into the side of her head a bit more. And there you go. So that's how I did her ears. I don't know, it's kind of, her ears were tough for me because they're not just like typical stereotypical unicorn ears, you know, whatever on top of the head. Her ears are really big and they kind of come out the side of her head and go around to the top. So I did my best with this one. It was a little rough for me. So I did the same thing on the other side. I held up the one ear to the first one to make sure that they were the same size. So you don't need one crazy big ear, another small ear or something. And just stick them on with some water and a little bit of dried spaghetti, just like before. All right, now I'm going to start on her mane. Oh, someone walked past. I wonder who it was. And I am going to be using fondant for this. I ended up mixing it with tylose powder in order to make it stiffen and harden up. So, you know, that's what I did. It turns it into gum paste, basically, because I wanted her to have that lift. Her hair does not lay flat on her head. It's very up and poofy, kind of. And it's very wild and jaggedy. And if you just lay it on her head, it just doesn't look right. So I tried. This was my attempt. So I have the paper towel there, as you see. I cut out kind of like a forked, like a snake's tongue piece for the red. I've got a small piece of orange here. You can see I cut a little wedge out on the left that's going to match up with the bottom wedge on the right. You see how they come together? Because if you look at pictures of her hair, the stripes don't kind of go the way you expect them to. They go halfway down one of her little spikes. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And there's also like only a little bit of red that shows. There's kind of a lot of orange that shows, and then only a little bit of yellow that shows. And it's got to curve around and come over her ear and over her one eye. So I was just trying to mess around and come with what would work, with ideas that would work. So here's the yellow. If you look at pictures again, the yellow is back further on her head. And again, it's just another like snake tongue, just kind of fork it off. And this one is going to have to wrap around her ear. So I'm keeping it a little bit more tucked in on the bottom. And the yellow blends into the orange, so I'm trying to trim it so it kind of goes together. And there you go, there's her hair. Now to get it on her head, that becomes a little bit more tricky. Again, I'm using some pieces of dry paper towel because I didn't want to put just this giant wad of hair on top of her head. It would be very heavy. I didn't want it to smush the cake or damage anything. So I'm trying to figure out what I could use that would be flexible enough that I could wrap around it and hold it, would hold its shape. So that's what I did. I'm tucking the yellow around her ear. The red is coming up over her ear. And then I realized her little spikes in the front were just flopping in her face. So I'm using pieces of dried spaghetti to hold them out. Now once it dries, I can pull those sticks out as well as remove the paper towels, and it will just kind of bowl over top of her head. So this is going to be the back of her mane. This is purple. I'm building from the bottom up. I just took a big old log of it, cut it in half basically. I'm working on the point around this in the front there, and I'm just going to wrap it around toward the back of her head. Just curve it around nice and neat. Again, here's my little pizza cutter. And it will help show off the colors, but not make it like a big obvious thing where it's taking over the cake. So once you have the blue in place now, or excuse me, the purple in place, now we're going to get out the blue. I'm sorry, I thought the camera could show this a little bit better, but I ended up making just another fork, you know, just like the hair was up top. I kept having to trim it skinnier and skinnier because I didn't have all that much room with her ear coming down as far as it did. But it worked, so it was no big deal. I just forked it off, trim it skinny, and then lay it on top of the purple once I get a nice angle that I think looks good, that I think it looks nice. See? It actually does look nice, I think. Anyway, here's my last color for the mane, and it's going to be green. Only a little bit of the green shows in the pictures I've seen of her, which just worked out perfectly because I could only fit a little bit of green underneath her giant ear. And the tip of the green blends in with that top piece, the top fork of the blue, kind of like with her hair. This is how the colors come together to make a spike. So right there, I'm trying to lift and kind of pinch the two together there. Make sure everything is nice and smoothed out, nice and neat. And then you have, yeah, your rainbow dash. There's really not much else to do to her. As you can see here also, I'm sorry guys, I thought I showed it, but I did add 3 eyelashes to each side. It was just little rectangles I stuck on. But there you go, right? Rainbow dash, not too bad. Her hair is a little tough, but if you can work it out better, then let me know what you do, because I always like to improve. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please check out my many other videos. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.